Howdy, y'all.
Hi. I said hi too many times.
That's okay.
I got excited. I'm Amy.
I'm Lori.
I'm Haley.
And this is Hugo Girl, a hilarious podcast where we talk about Hugo Award-winning and Hugo adjacent.
One might also say that it's a Hugo Award-nominated podcast.
One could say that.
It is, in fact, a Hugo finalist.
Indeed. We're so excited, guys, still. Thank you for all of your support.
Is Ted okay?
Yeah, my dog is like looking at a ghost.
This is very much Blair Witch. She's just in the corner staring at it.
All right. Okay, so Lori might have a review. Did we have a new review?
Yes, we did get a new review, and it was from Pete on Apple Podcasts, and it said, fun, funny, friendly, and fresh.
Fresh.
Pete with the alliteration, shortened to the point. I love it. Thanks, Pete. Fresh.
We're the 4F club.
I also
4-H.
Oh. Were you in 4-H?
Lori, what does the 4-H
Of course you were in 4-H.
I was in 4-H, and
Horses, honor,
a while ago,
happiness.
a while ago, there was someone on WABE, our local NPR station, that was talking about 4-H, and she did the 4-H chant thing, like the 4-H Pledge of Allegiance, and I was in the kitchen, and I just started saying it, and I remembered the whole thing.
Of all the Masonic...
I hadn't thought about it in 25 years, and I was like, I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world.
You know who would have a 4-H? The world state.
Yes. And the 5th H is horses.
I also wanted to briefly do a little shout out for our friend of the pod, Emmanuel Dubois, who has a new podcast himself called Lafayette. We are here. What is that in French? We are here.
Nous sommes ici.
Lafayette, nous sommes ici.
Yeah.
So he has a little French history podcast.
Yeah.
Give it a listen.
It's designed for Americans who are woefully misinformed about many things.
Which is me.
Including French history.
Which is me.
One time, your podcast hosts were in a train going to the south of France, and we were too loud.
Yep.
And
you're not supposed to be loud on the quiet cars.
They were very mad at us. Those French people were angrily shaking their newspaper at us.
We were being Americans.
None of us have an inside voice.
True. I really don't.
Yes,
but
you have 1 decibel level, and it is a lot.
I know. But obviously most Americans can be very annoying, especially abroad, but I feel like we were just buoyantly happy to be on vacation.
Buoyantly happy.
Yeah, that wasn't the buoyantly happy car, though.
I know.
They were in their newspapers looking around.
They're like, we're going to Provence, and it's serious.
Sacre bleu.
We still love France, though.
We did love France. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, a lot of France did seem to love us. They were very nice to us.
We had a great time in France.
Yeah, we
It was
did.
just that one train.
We were just too happy.
We were too happy for that train.
Les Américains.
Also, today we are sampling the Starlight limited edition of Coca-Cola. Not sponsored.
Yeah, definitely not sponsored. Just weird.
And, because it's supposed to taste like space, so we figured we'd give it a try.
It smells like Coke. Just Coke.
Howard's legs. Let it...
It's what?
So, when you do wine tasting, you, swirl it around the glass, and it makes, little legs of,
legs.
Yeah.
Just where it's stuck to the side.
Yeah.
That's how you can tell how the body of the wine is.
Good God.
This doesn't have any legs.
No, it doesn't. The color
it slides right down.
The color is a rosy Coke.
Oh, well,
It's Coke Rosé.
I'm a little tainted by what Kevin said earlier. It does taste like cream soda.
It tastes like cream soda.
It's Coke on the front end and a cream soda finish.
That's right.
I think it tastes like a Coke mixed with half of a flat Coke. And then
Yes.
to me,
Yes.
the bottom end is not cream soda, but it's something similar. It's taro flavored boba tea.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I thought it tastes like flat vanilla Coke mixed with regular Coke. I mean, I'd drink it. I wouldn't kick it out of bed.
And the thing is, it's tasty, but I think that doesn't space taste like steak?
Steak?
Space tastes like steak?
Yeah, people say the smell in space is like cooking meat.
Why? How can you smell space?
They must mean like the
I wondered
air.
that
Your
as
head's
I was
not
saying it. I
outside.
don't
I think
know.
it means the air in the capsule.
What
is like,
if you
Yeah, that smells like socks.
What if
or
you
like farts?
go on a moonwalk and you get a jar and you wave it around out in space and then you close it and then you bring it back in like farting in
you
a jar.
take a Kroger bag and just like whip it through the air.
It would be
tie it up
empty.
really
There's
And then
quick.
you come back in and then you open the jar.
It would be empty, guys. There's nothing in space.
That's not true. There is
There
stuff
is-
in space.
there is steak
very,
smell.
There's very like small things, but like not air. I don't think.
There's dust that makes the stars and you and
I
me.
think it's stardust. It's like char. I think it's true. It's like
Stardust and heavy metal.
it's like char
we
or
understand
something.
niche.
It smells like char.
I mean, there's a big fire pit in the middle of our solar system.
It's burning
And
something.
we're all just
Oh, it's burning so much.
BYO planet. We're sitting around the fire pit. We're all chatting.
Yeah.
So it's clear that we need another Skype a Scientist session.
What does space smell like?
Oh, thank you, Kevin.
Oh, Google.
Astronauts have reported smelling burned or fried steak after a spacewalk, and they aren't just dreaming of a home-cooked meal. The smell of space is so distinct that 3 years ago, NASA reached out to Stephen Pierce of the fragrance maker Omega Ingredients to recreate the odor for its training simulations.
But what is the smell?
and it's when they get back into the.
What do you mean, what is it?
Wait, what are they like? What
Is it like-
what is smelling like steak?
Yeah, is it
Where
like-
is that smell coming from?
Residual char from the sun?
Like, is it their outside clothes? Do they smell?
yeah.
Oh my God. Why does it smell like steak in space? Stephen Pierce, a chemist hired by NASA to recreate the space odor on Earth for astronaut training purposes, said the metallic aspect of the scent may come from high energy vibrations of ions. That sounds like that's
no.
very woo woo.
That sounds like something someone put in their science fiction book.
There's a lot of radiation in space, so maybe like.
I mean, I think the answer is we don't know.
I want to keep talking about it though.
I mean, I like the smell of barbecue. That's good.
But is it their? Do they sniff their suits?
Yeah, like surely they come back in and they take their suits off, just like if they took a jar out and waved it around and trapped some space air.
Just like when your brother used to come in from playing outside and he smelled like outside, like it smells
Yeah.
like space in the
Yeah.
in the space locker
Yes,
room.
it's exactly
Okay,
like that.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it now.
But there's definitely not air in space, right?
No,
No.
there is no air in space. Famous.
So it's just like it's some sort of physical residualness that's on them.
That was a terrible joke.
What did he say? I didn't hear it.
Haley said, "There's no air in space, right?" And Kevin goes, "There's an air in space museum."
Oh,
it's
a Simpsons joke. Oh, for all the men in the audience, there's a Simpsons joke.
Okay.
This has been our not sponsored Coke break.
Okay, so today on our comedy podcast, we're discussing one of the most depressing books ever written, Kallocain by Karin Boye. Kallocain was published in 1940 and was nominated for the 2016 Retro Hugo. Did not win. R.I.P. Okay, so I didn't know a lot about the Retro Hugos before reading this. I know that we did Conjure Wife a while back, which was the winner for 1944. It was awarded in 2019, but I just didn't look into the Retro Hugos at that time.
That was
so
because that was more for spooky stuff.
exactly. We read it because it was creepy.
And fun.
And fun.
And filled with breakfast.
Right. Oh, the hands.
So much breakfast.
I did the
eggs.
transcript of that episode recently, and I really enjoyed typing eggs, coffee, sausage, bacon, sandwiches.
So Retro Hugos started with 1996 Worldcon. Currently, they are awarded for years after 1939, which was the year of the first Worldcon, in which no Hugos were originally awarded. Worldcons can give awards to works published 75 or 100 years prior to the Worldcon year. It used to be 50, but I think those are all taken up now.
Oh, so it's not like 1 year corresponding with the year that
Right.
it's awarded. Oh, okay, cool.
So Retro Hugos have been awarded 8 times for 1939, 1941, 43 through 46, 51, and 54. I also looked this up. ShyCon 8 is not going to do Retro Hugos for 1947, which would have been 75 years.
Okay.
They're going to do a retrospective of the works and fandom of 1946, which is being spearheaded by a friend of the pod, Cora Bullard.
Oh, cool.
Yay, Cora. Cora, finalist for Best Fan Writer Award this year, I believe.
Yes.
And was last
absolutely.
year, too.
Yes.
ShyCon gave a lot of reasons for not doing a Retro Hugo this year and noted that 1946 was a really interesting year for fandom. And they said, basically, 1946 was the first Worldcon held after World War II and was notable for several firsts, including the first non-American guest and the first woman guest of honor,
Oh.
Emaine Hull. And this was another thing that I read that was interesting. So they said it's been increasingly difficult to get representatives from estates involved in the awards, leading us to question who we were really honoring when the creators are deceased and the estates, for the most part, are uninterested. So that like sort of led me to kind of think like, well, do you honor them? I mean, I think there's some purpose in giving out the Retro Hugos because it gets people interested in the book again.
Yeah.
Which I think is it's a good enough reason to give out a Retro Hugo,
Yeah.
even if no person is saying thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
But I was curious what you guys thought about that.
I think it's fun to just have a reason to geek out over something collectively. Like I wouldn't for myself, I wouldn't be like, what were some good books in 1946? But like this is a prompt to like look for and think about stuff that was written at the time and think about the context of it. So I think it's just a interesting and fun thing.
We never would have read this book if it hadn't been involved with the Hugos, I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, it was recommended to us by our listener, Lisa.
Yes.
What's her last name?
Andreasen?
So, I think that's why we're reading it. But, I don't know if she came across it because of the Hugos or not. But, it being a Hugo adjacent book is why we're reading it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good reason to give them out. But I guess I get it.
There's never a bad reason to read stuff,
No, there's not.
Amy, where did you get all this fun information?
Well, these were excerpts from the announcement from Shai Khan.
Oh.
But I pulled the excerpts off of file 770.
Oh, cool.
And he was where I got the Cora information.
Ah.
So, should we jump right in?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Okay. Kallocain is told as a memoir of Leo Kall, a chemist living in Chemistry City number 4 in the totalitarian bureaucracy called World State. Through most of the book, Leo is primarily preoccupied with 1, getting FDA approval for Kallocain, a truth drug he discovered which induces a person to tell their innermost thoughts and secrets, and 2, ferreting out whether Linda, Leo's wife, is having an affair with Ido Risson, Leo's boss. While using Kallocain to hunt down people who get together in secret to do mutual trust exercises, it dawns on Leo that he can Kallocain Linda. While drugged, Linda says, no, there's no affair, but she also tells Leo she wants to kill him because she loves him too much. This revelation gives Leo and Linda a new lease on their marriage and turns Leo into a revolutionary. Leo goes from being a committed world state soldier to being a person who understands that the world state is not the be-all end-all and that the importance of an individual human does not begin and end with that person's value to the state. Then Leo gets captured by invading enemies and rots in prison for the rest of his life, never to see Linda again. The end.
Man, I love that he gives Linda that truth serum, and he's like, are you cheating? She's like, what? No, but I'm definitely going to kill you. First chance I get.
All right, goodies from Goodreads.
I'll go.
What y'all got?
So this book got overwhelmingly 4 and 5-star reviews, which is a good sign. And a lot of people, while praising it, also mentioned a common theme, and that is it is a very bleak book. So I found 2 that I really liked. Leslie said, maybe the author did too good a job depicting a sterile, meaningless world. And then Saeed said, the descriptions of people under the influence of the eponymous Kallocain were harrowing. Karin Boye sure did have a particular talent for writing torture, huh?
Aw, she probably felt very tortured.
Yeah.
Well, she did.
She did.
We know she did. She ended her own life like a year after
this came out, and she had been living as lesbian. She had a partner, and I'm sure that wasn't easy at the time. Yeah.
I read that her partner also died by suicide very closely after her death. Yeah. Yeah. So she was definitely struggling. Yeah. And some of the more scholarly reviews that I read said that herself is certainly reflected in what's going on with all of these characters.
Yeah, we can talk about, I've struggled with depression my whole life, and some of the stuff she says in there is just very much a depressed person's view of the world. Like, wouldn't it be nice to not have to worry about anything anymore kind of language?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Got anything?
I do. I have 2. I have a 1-star Goodreads review from Philippa. I did not like the way it was written. Maybe just because I'm not big on older books, or maybe because there was just too much babbling going on.
All the babbling.
And also, I'm just not big on older books. This is why we need Retro Hugo.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then Oscar, rated it 1 star, was hoping the writer would go a different direction with the theme of the story.
I saw that one.
Like, did he think it was going to have a happy ending? Poor Oscar.
This book was a different book.
Oscar was like, oh boy, Linda and Leo are getting back together. No.
I mean, what was he thinking? Like, 1984 and Brave New World ends so well. This buoyant dystopian genre.
My 2 goodies from Goodreads were mainly humorous to me because of translation ease. And they just were funny to me. One's from Noella, and it says, "This book was the first of its gender, and this is weakness because those who followed were better."
Oh.
First of its gender.
What was that like? Was Goodreads doing an automatic translation?
I
or
don't know
something?
whether she put her own review through like Google Translate and came up with this. I don't know, but it was very funny to me.
Maybe gender meant to be genre.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, maybe. And then the second one is from Liv Bergquist.
Ah, Swede.
Yes, who says, "Many pages were just filled with text throughout the whole page."
What? I don't expect that when I read books.
How dare these words be here?
The funny thing about that is that this book actually doesn't have, like, the pages are not filled with text. The margins are quite large.
I mean, there are definitely times when people get under the Kallocain and they just sort of, mind vomit at whoever's listening to them. Maybe there was no paragraph breaks. Maybe
Yes, that's true.
Maybe that's the problem.
But this book, quite literally, the pages are not filled with text.
Well, Liv would disagree. Text throughout the whole page.
Well, it needed more pictures.
Yeah. Oh, God, it did not need any pictures.
Did this one have? I know that it was broken up into chapters, but I don't even think there were chapter headings. It was just sort of.
It was just like chapter
start
7.
a
Yeah,
new
I think
one.
just numbers.
Did it have numbers?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, mine doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, mine does. I have a different copy than y'all do, though.
Yeah. So Lori and I read a translation from 1966 rather, and Haley read the newer translation. If we were really going to get into it, I'd be curious about some translation differences, but
2019.
Do you have a different translator?
yeah.
Oh.
David McDuff, 2019. And
I have
also,
Gustav Lennestock.
So ours was the translation. So the University of Wisconsin led this effort to get Swedish books particularly translated. So this is one of the ones I did.
Okay.
The whole text is on the internet
yeah.
from the University of Wisconsin.
Wow. I did not know that. I paid $26 for this
I
book.
think I paid the same.
To my local feminist bookstore.
Yeah,
so
not mad
it's all
about it.
fine. Yeah,
Not mad about
it's
it.
all fine.
Okay. So actually, I'm going to start with what we were just talking about. So the end of this book, Leo is imprisoned by the invading enemy, the universal state, as opposed to the world state, invades world state and captures Leo and makes off with him.
I mean, Universal State sounds like they're bigger and better.
Yeah, it's like
sounds
Mr. World and Mr. Universe.
Universal Universe Church or whatever it's called.
The Unitarian
Universalist. Yeah. They're a liberal people. But at the end of the book, you get a censor's note from the universal state. And they're talking about, basically, they're the same as the world state. They're just, which checks out because this book is basically a cautionary tale about Germany and the Soviet Union and their alliance that they made at the beginning of World War II. And now you have these two basically bordering totalitarian regimes. Anyway, I digress. So Leo is in jail at the end of this book, but the last part of the book, so he's, become a revolutionary. He's seeing past the totalitarian regime and he's, feeling very countercultural. Then he gets arrested and he's in jail. But then his last line is, "I still, in spite of it all, participate in creating a new world." Right? He believes that he's still part of this
I didn't
change.
quite get that. Like, so in what way did he create a new world? Just like,
just by seeing the world state for what it is and snapping out of this, brainwashing they'd been doing and seeing individuals as worthwhile in their own right and not as a tool of the state, that kind of thing. But my main question was, so have you guys read Brave New World in 1984?
I don't think I have.
Yeah, I read it in high school and I love it.
Which one?
Brave New World.
Have you read 1984 too?
Yep.
So 1984, Winston Smith is the guy in 1984. And so basically 1984, in a way, Winston kind of picks up where Leo lets off. Like he's trying to move against the state, kind of. He starts having this affair. Like there's this whole thing. And they get him. They get Winston.
And there's like thought police there, which is similar to Kallocain. Just who knows how they do it.
Yeah. And so, but 1984 ends with, Winston is gone. Winston is taken off the planet. And so I'm curious, I guess it's just for you since she hasn't, maybe, I don't know, we'll see.
You can teach me.
I'm curious whether you see 1984 or Kallocain as a more optimistic book. Because Kallocain is obviously very dark in the way it's presented, but
I think 1984 is because he falls in love. He has that affair. They like bone above the bookstore of the place.
They do. It's very British. There's tea and feelings.
Yeah. But with this one, it's like there's no joy in this book. There's not 1 second of joy in this book.
That's true.
There's some, I think.
I mean, I'm open to examples, but
I think there is some joy in this book.
It's more like there's glimmers of hope
Yeah, that's
it's not
right.
really joy.
I would agree with that.
Which is why I'm on the other side of you, because like, you know, there's these moments where like Leo, like it starts the first glimmer you see. And I will also say Leo is not a very sympathetic character. Like Leo is he's a fellow soldier.
He's a snitch.
Yeah, and he's a snitch. He snitches on
he engineers snitching.
He's snitching left and right. He's a believer, and so I don't think you're supposed to really align yourself with him to a large degree. Like you're supposed to be hoping he changes, not that he changes others. Like, which is the difference, I think, with Winston. But he has these moments. So like there's this moment in the beginning where he goes to this festival and he sees this woman really upset because her daughter is gonna be taken to a different not city state, you know what I mean?
Yeah. She's going to work.
They live in different work districts.
She's going to a different district, yeah. And so this mother is sad, and she's hiding it. But this other dude kind of ferrets out what this woman is feeling and starts needling her and trying to get her to like admit that she's upset or something.
And you're not supposed to put family bonds ahead of your bond with the world state,
right? And any empathy type feelings are really forbidden. And you know, basically, it's just like these are the sacrifices you make, and everybody's supposed to be okay with it. No secret feelings, just be okay with it. But Leo sees that this is happening, and in his speech at this festival, he sort of gets a little bit subversive. He's like, shouldn't we be more grateful to these people who feel the sacrifice than the people who don't, basically? And that gets him in trouble. But like that's the first sort of inkling you get that Leo might have these undercurrents of maybe not all is well with the world state, right?
Or just like what's not all is well with his life.
Yeah, or just...
The world state's fine by itself. It's just like I think what I don't like about books like this versus Brave New World, so Brave New World is a dystopia and like there's an authoritarian world regime. But at least with Brave New World, they give them drugs. Like they take Soma and they're just always happy. They're constantly having sex. Like I think you gotta give...
They at least get to party.
Yeah, like I mean, this is obviously a cautionary tale by people that were, you know, on the eve of World War II. But like, I just feel like fear is not enough to keep people in line. Like humans would not do well in this sort of fake society. I don't know.
Well, but they are in this. Like, North Korea right now is basically this,
and they're not doing well. I mean, I think you're
correct.
They're not doing well.
They're not doing well in the sense. I mean, the world, this kind of bureaucracy can't take care of human beings very well.
Yeah, and like humans will break down, and like North Korea.
But there are people who are loyal to that. Like, so it's not like...
Because they're afraid. I mean, like, all they have in these civilizations is fear. Like, that's what keeps people in line.
Well, fear and extreme brainwashing, right? So, like, if you grow up... I don't know. I mean, I'm speculating, obviously. But if you grow up in this kind of situation and all you know is this, right? And you're never really told you're told that the rest of the world is wrong for these reasons. You know, you don't want to go there for these other reasons. And if you just sort of don't... If you're the kind of person who doesn't question... then, which there are plenty of people like that. They're not interested in rocking the boat. I mean, people they'd go along with it. They went along with it in several different examples of this, not for long. I mean, they didn't last a long time.
Well, yeah, that's just it. I think, like, you can do this for, like, you know, for as long as Stalin ruled or, you know, for long as others, but like for hundreds of years societies, I don't know if it's sustainable. You
know what I think the problem is that people can't, when they get powerful, they can't help themselves. Because Stalin, even like he started one way and kind of turned a corner at some point and started, you know, being violent towards his own people. And I think when that starts happening, people are like, wait a second, this isn't the deal we made. And then maybe that starts off a chain reaction. I don't know.
So on Wikipedia, I found this interesting quote, and it's a letter to George Orwell about 1984 from Huxley. And he wrote, "Whether in actual fact the policy of the boot on the face can go on indefinitely seems doubtful. My own belief is that the ruling oligarchy will find less arduous and wasteful ways of governing and of satisfying its lust for power. And these ways will resemble those which I described in Brave New World." He went on to write, "Within the next generation, I believe that the world's rulers will discover that infant conditioning and narco-hypnosis are more efficient as instruments of government than clubs and prisons, and that the lust for power can be just as completely satisfied by suggesting people into loving their servitude as by flogging and kicking them into obedience."
Well, that's what's going on in this book, though, right? They've taught, they're not being beaten every day.
Well, no, but like this book and 1984 have like cameras in every room. There's people always listening, whereas Brave New World is more of they have more freedom in a way, but they also do a really fucked up thing.
Well, they don't, but they are led. All of that is tamped down by the Soma.
Well, and so what they do is that they create people in, they decant babies into like, they like basically just like create them from IVF. But so they create people based on intelligence. So like you have the A's that are like doctors and lawyers. Then you have people down to like D's that are like, have IQs of 60 and they like dig the ditches and they work. So like people are happy with their lot in life based on like their intelligence level, which is interesting.
So I was going to say something building off what you were saying, Amy, about if you are raised this way, if you're conditioned from infancy to not question things. I think it's easy for us looking at this, and as we've said many times before, speculative fiction takes something to an extreme so that we can really examine it. But to your point about being raised in something so you don't question it, I think a good analogy for us would be like other people in other parts of the world look at the U.S. and they're like, "What do you mean people like can't get their cancer treatment? Like why would you accept that? Why do you accept that? Why do you live like that? Why are people dying when like treatments and medication is abundantly available and like some medications, life-saving medications, even get thrown away while people are dying from not having them? But like." As individuals, we're like, well, I don't know.
That's
it's
just
like,
the way it is.
that's what they gave us, So I think it's like easy for us to look at a book and be like, humans would never accept that. But, we're in our relative positions of privilege and we live under a system that literally kills people and doesn't need to. So I think like we are all actually susceptible to things that seem shocking.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, yeah, to other people.
Right.
Everybody's raised. And it's even just slight differences too will make you kind of realize that you sort of just accept. I think to a large degree, I do believe to a large degree, people accept the reality with which they are presented, right? And they may question the edges of it to some degree, but it's hard to execute a sea change over reality because most people are like, this is just how things are.
Yeah.
I think we've come to be that way because if you grow up in a community and your safety relies on your community, which is what humans were for a really long time, you don't want to rock the boat. You want it to remain safe. So you exist in your little sphere and you don't move too much.
Yeah. And the society in the book is engineered in such a way that people can't mobilize. So individuals don't have any power, but individuals will be shot to death if they're found to be agitators or enemies of the state, which is a very low bar, very low bar. Like you love your wife, you're an enemy of the state.
Yeah. I think another important thing is that like people don't know what parts of what the state is telling them are true and what are not true, right? Like they're being told there's this enemy, there's these constant wars, that the surface is irradiated and you can't live on it and like all this stuff, but they're not really given an opportunity to examine any of that. So they have to kind of take it on faith. So they have no idea what is true and what is not true, right? And I was reading, this is from theblankgarden.com. It was a review of Kallocain, and she was bringing up a lot of Hannah Arendt's philosophy, right? And one of the things that she wrote was in The Origins of Totalitarianism was the ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the convinced communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction, i.e. the reality of experience, and the distinction between true and false, the standards of thought, no longer exist. What convinces masses are not facts and not even invented facts, but only the consistency of the system of which they are presumably part. So it's like
Fox News.
Well, yeah, that's immediately what came to mind. Yeah. It's like when you live in a post-fact world, then you just rely on this worldview, and nothing can shake the worldview, where everything falls apart, right? So I think that's kind of how these people exist. And so when you see Leo, sort of periscoping out of this world and sort of looking around and saying, "Oh, wait, this isn't what I thought," and then at the end, it's not. He doesn't go back. He's like, no, I was right. And I'm still like, there's going to be a new world. He believes that things will change. So I think the reason, going way back to what I was saying before, I think the reason I think it's a hopeful book is because if people continue to believe that the world will change, that's how you make the world change, right? Because if you don't think there's anything to change and you don't want to, then everything stays the same, right? And if you torture Winston Smith and kill him, because that's the thing about 1984, there's still torture in that book. There's a lot of like physical threat to the people in that book, unlike in this one. This is a book, sort of an interior book, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess hope is good for Leo at the end of the book. Like he feels good, even though he's running away, like working for the enemy. So, I mean, I guess one hope is better than nothing, but like if you can't spread that hope. But there's also a theme throughout the book where like, some people can be a threat to the state, even if they don't even open up their mouth. It's like their energy and their like positivity, maybe. So
yeah, which goes to the Kallocain, right? So like the Kallocain is used to ferret out. I keep saying the word ferret. I've said it like 4 times.
That's fine. That's fine.
Or ferret.
It's just the word of the day.
Ferret.
You said the secret word. So I hope you say it again.
Ferret. anyway, the Kallocain is like the last bastion against the state is what's inside your skull, right? Like, up till now they couldn't get there, and you could be as subversive as you want inside your brain, and as long as you didn't let it out, they couldn't do anything about it. Yeah. But now Kallocain comes along, and now people are like spewing their innermost thoughts and feelings, and so now, and then they pass a law in the book that says you can be convicted for this. So
yeah, this reminds me of the movie, which I saw first, and then there's a short story by Philip K. Dick, Minority Report. So like,
yeah.
So that in that book / movie, they have these 3 mutants that like work at the police department basically, and they can predict whether a murder is going to occur, and then they can go arrest you for a murder that you have not yet committed, but is like in your heart.
There's a part of me that I will confess likes the idea.
Doesn't hate it.
The idea of being able to stop a crime before it happens, because then we would not have traumatized victims.
Yeah, that's true.
But where do you draw the line, people?
Well, what's cool about it, at least in the movie, is that, they go and intervene like 1 minute before it happens. So like there's like circumstantial evidence that it was about to take place. But yeah, that really turns the justice system on its head.
When you're about to commit a crime and you get the tools for your crime together. Oh, is it just conspiracy? Maybe it's just like attempted murder. Like you can be charged with attempted murder these days if you have done a certain amount of things to lead up to the murder. But
what do we think sex murder is in this book? I wrote that down and I was like, is that just
or lust murder? Oh, it's called lust murder in ours.
It's called sex murder.
Probably like a crime of passion.
Okay.
I would bet.
I assumed sex murder was like raping and killing.
Yeah,
somebody.
that's what I thought it was.
Like, lust murder and sex murder are two different things.
Lust murder, I would have no question, but sex murder, I was like, oh.
Amy, I'd like to connect back to something that you said previously. If we're going to skip sex murder.
Sorry, y'all.
Amy, when you said, well, that's an interesting translation difference. I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
But I would assume a lust murder is a crime of passion.
Same.
Like, you
manslaughter.
But you're not allowed to like be jealous of someone sleeping with your wife. So what is a lust murder? I don't know.
But this guy was like, it was like he fantasized about lust murder, so I don't know if it can be a crime of passion.
Oh yeah,
because he hadn't done it.
It has to be some sort of psychosexual killer or something like that.
I think it's a sex crime.
Anyway,
really. Okay, so when you said you thought it was hopeful at the end, and I was very surprised, but you made a good point about how he's like, my mind is freed to a degree, an important degree, and when you said that, I thought, that. It makes a lot of sense because there were all those people that they talked to when they were under Kallocain who had no organization, no meetings, no structure, but they were just like intellectually aware that this system was oppressive and not good and they were not happy with it, but they weren't talking about it. And so like the state views that as a threat. So if the state views the simple awareness as a threat and the thinkers view their awareness as a degree of freedom, then it is going to create change. If it didn't have the potential for change, then the state would not fear people simply having that awareness. Right. So I think that really reinforces what you said about it being hopeful at the end.
I mean, and the people talk when they're under the Kallocain and they're talking about how they can sort of tell just by passing someone in the street if they're a believer, like if they're
in Ulcoma or Bajel.
Yeah.
Ulcoma. Well, and I think sometimes it depends on a country's situation, how amenable the people may be to an oppressive regime. So, like, I imagine in Russia, they've had some rough times. Like, sometimes, if a new government comes along and they can make the trains run on time and you get fed, it's like, well, shit, it's better than nothing.
Well, they're also a country that is very used to, because they were controlled by religion for a long time, so they're very used to,
and they were serfs for a long time too.
Yeah, so they're a people who are used to having someone tell them what to do, kind of.
Yeah, whereas I think this would not work in America. Like we couldn't even get people to wear masks in America.
Well, I would say that, and yet we have a large quantity of people in this country who are very interested in falling in line, and curtailing rights and curtailing education and curtailing all these things because they don't believe it follows in their...
Weirdly, in the name of rugged individualism.
I know.
That's the irony.
It's very confusing.
Also, oxymoronic is the fact that the world state is always like, we need more people, we need more women to pump out babies. But then, like, they're taking away so many people, and they're just...
I was thinking about that. You really see towards the end how it is going to self-destruct. Yeah. Because if you kill everybody who has a thought, that's everybody.
Yeah, and you can't run a society based on that.
Which is, Leo says to the police guy in this book at some point, he's like, you can't arrest 2/3 of the population. And the police guy's like,
he's like, watch me.
Why not?
And he's like, the budget will be great.
And it's interesting being able to see Leo's... so much of his interior life because he is one of the finger pointers, and also he is a blossoming subversive. Mm-hmm. And so he's pointing the finger at all these people while he's also actively concealing these same thoughts, which of course reminded me once again of the people who are like, oh, there's pedophiles everywhere. Yeah. And then like,
lo and behold,
you find out some news, you know?
Yeah, you always hate the thing that reminds you of yourself the most.
Yeah.
That's why
you want to like
that's why my father and I fight. Because we are the same. But yeah, so totalitarianism, you know? What are you going to do?
Can't live with it. Can't live without it.
Yeah. Can we talk about their lives? So they get a monthly ration of sleeping pills. The kids are gone a lot. There's home help. You got off-duty work 4 times a week. You get the Alexa in every room. Alexa, ear and eye. Just
some of that list, like in isolation, I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
there's a creche. There's a housekeeper. There's plenty of sleeping pills.
There's a big part of me that would really like for someone to be like, here's your work suit. Here's your leisure suit.
Oh, yeah.
Here's your spare suit.
Yeah.
Now you never have to worry about clothes again.
Right.
I hope they're flight suits.
I bet they have to be, right?
They have to be.
Yeah, they have to be fly suits. Yeah, and their days are very regimented. Yeah, and they're kept very busy. And so I think that like they're either kept very busy or they're watched. So I think, you know, there's not a lot of room in there for except for your one leisure night a week.
Mm-hmm. Or it's like Lisa Simpson's closet where it's just like 7 orange dresses.
You know?
There's another Simpsons reference for you guys.
Well, that's like Elizabeth Holmes when she decided she was going to wear one thing.
Or Steve Jobs, yeah. It's like a thing people do.
Because Steve Jobs did it.
Yep.
God bless Elizabeth
Mark Zuckerberg wears the same hoodie every day.
Yeah, you know? Like, there's something to be said for it, taking that part out of your anxiety.
I also like, at one point, Leo meets somebody. Maybe it's the chief, maybe it's somebody else. But he's like, I saw you in the Fellow Soldiers portrait album, which is just Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
He meets the like chief of the chiefs.
Yeah.
And he's like, I recognized his eyebrows and nose from the portrait album.
Fellow Soldiers portrait album. It's like a yearbook, but Facebook.
Oh, that makes me think of that scene in The Social Network where he's like, if you'd invented Facebook, you would have invented Facebook. Well, buddy, it looks like maybe someone else invented Facebook.
Corinne created Facebook back in the day. God bless. I wanted to ask you guys. So our friend Leo lives in Chemistry City number 4. There's reference to other cities where they do things, specific things.
Textile City.
What city would you live in?
If it's based on occupation, I would work in Marketing Metropolis number 69.
So you'd work for propaganda minister, chief of bureau number 7?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think?
Fuck. As soon as you brought that up, I was like, uh-oh, I'm going to fail this test. I don't know.
I don't really know either.
I think I would work in like the legal quarter.
I think I could probably do some sort of handiwork. Like if someone was like, like here's the pattern for this shirt. Make the shirt 50
Surely there's
times.
lawyers here.
Wait. Okay, so people do get divorced left and right in this society.
True,
so actually, I slot right in.
You'd be a divorce
Yeah.
lawyer.
Yay.
You'd be running the divorce bureaucracy.
Totally.
Okay.
I'd be like, all right, it sounds like it's not working. And you know something? Actually, my job would be a lot easier because it sounds like people don't accumulate property. Their children are really property of the state. So there's no custody. There's no property division. There's no I'd just be like, all right, sign here, sign here.
Well, you know, there's probably 18 forms in triplicate to get a divorce in the capital.
Watch me do a form.
I know.
Yeah.
You would still have work to do. It just wouldn't be.
My attention to detail and my ability to press hard enough through 3 carbon copies is unparalleled.
It would be like the bureaucracy scene in Jupiter.
Yes, Jupiter.
That is such a good scene.
It's one of my favorite scenes of almost any
Going
movie.
to the clerk's office is the worst.
Yep.
And it is such a good scene.
Everybody go watch Jupiter Ascending.
One day we're going to watch it and do a special.
It's so good.
I live for that day. Okay, so I'm doing handiwork, and you guys are working for propaganda bureaucracy number 7. And
You would work for like the construction Politburo.
Oh yeah, building bureau. Yeah.
I could build some stuff, but in World State, we'd probably just be popping out babies.
Yeah, well, yeah, because the wife works in like the laundry, and
on that subject, there's a lot on that.
Should we talk about Linda?
Yeah,
let's talk about poor Linda. So Linda and Leo are married. They have 3 kids. One of their kids has gone off to the
children's camp.
Why do these future books always take the kids out of the home?
Because it's weird.
Well, I think it depends on what kind of book it is, because in a lot of books I like it where there's like communal child rearing and like it seems nice. It seems like everyone is responsible for everyone's children. And in other books, the parent-child family bond is not so interfered with. It's not frustrated. It's not like taboo. But you have more of a communal child rearing, and I think that's a good thing. I mean, it may not be right for every family, but I might be more likely to have children if I knew I had a built-in support network, you know?
Yes.
I mean, I still probably wouldn't, I don't want anyone to be like, oh, Lori wants kids.
It's okay not to want kids.
I don't.
No, we know that you do not.
But I just think it would be easier for people too. Like,
sure.
So anyway.
And especially if you need to keep working.
Well, and I think it's good for children to have multiple adults invested in their health and well-being and success and things like that. So I think in some books, it sounds great to me. But then in books like this, the whole purpose is to make the child a cog in the state machine.
Yeah.
So the parents are like a formality.
Like they're starting their
well, that's
education.
That's why in Brave New World, it goes to the opposite direction. Like, there's no parents. There's just like you are born and you're raised communally with no parent figures, besides like a community parent figures. But I think the idea of the nuclear family really came about in America in the 1940s and 50s and 60s and like wasn't very natural. Like, it's weird that we all went into separate houses to have just 2.5 kids for like most of human society. Like, you lived in extended families, blended families. Old people were with you, you know, like sometimes your uncle was with you, but like
there's a support network if someone gets sick or if someone has an injury or someone dies.
But you still had a family unit. I mean, you still had parent, mother, father.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's always existed, but it wasn't just like this isolated thing that you would go off into like Levittown, New Jersey.
No, yeah, no, I know. I'm not necessarily advocating for our weird suburban way of doing things here where everybody lives in their house and nobody ever talks to each other. But I mean, parents through history have historically wanted to stay with their children.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So I'm not
just
saying that's different, but like...
So it's interesting to me that these future books, a lot of them, when there's creches or whatever, I don't know if it's whether it's the same kind of exercise as trying to envision a different economic system. So you're trying to envision sort of a different futuristic family system.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's any more complicated than that, really, but it's just interesting to me that it keeps happening.
Like kind of like a waste of time to have the kids there only some of the time. Like, you think they'd be gone most of the time. I don't know. Like, it seems like it's splitting the difference between like this traditional way of doing it and then also this really subversive.
Why would this particular society put the kid back in the house? So like that's a really good point, because they take the kid. So, you know, at some point you hit a certain age, you get taken off to kiddie camp and then you go to youth camp and then you're a fellow soldier. But in this society, like one night a week or something like that, you come back and stay with your parents.
Yeah, like what does that give the kid? I don't know.
I mean, perhaps they tried it where the children had no family bonds at all and they realized that they were just raising like complete psychopaths. Like, like I do think, I mean, I think even in this situation, you have to recognize that people do need some type of bond with each other. I mean, they do allow for marriage. And if they, you know, like, there's got to be some basis, some reason for doing things, I guess.
It's an odd thing to do for the state to allow marriage because they want very clearly to cut off emotional ties between people.
Yeah. It's like being a Jedi.
Maybe marriages help them by letting these two people keep an eye on one another. Maybe that's...
Totally, because they will snitch on each other. And, it puts people in a situation where they are likely to procreate, even if occasionally. Yeah. Well,
although they have a police eye planted in the room where you're supposed to create children.
I actually was so interested in the part where Leo was talking about, like, early in his marriage when he was younger, he kind of liked boning in front of the police eye. He was like, yeah, check out what I got going on. And now he's just like, but, like, at a point he had sort of an exhibitionist streak, which I thought was funny. I was like, okay, Leo, maybe you're cool. I don't know. But I also think like you may also be disincentivized to have more children if your child is taken away from you immediately. So it could also be throwing some sort of bone to the family so they still feel like this is a family and they might want to have more children. But I think if you had the experience of having your child ripped away from you immediately and you never saw that child again, you might be like, yeah, we're not doing this again.
Which brings us to Linda.
Poor
Linda. So Linda
and Leo, right through it.
Linda and Leo get married. They are living together. Leo does not know if he can trust Linda, but he loves her, I think, in his Leo kind of way. And so he's upset because he can't possess her. Like he doesn't feel close enough to her.
And he thinks she's cheating with his boss.
And he doesn't trust her,
with absolutely no evidence.
Other than like one time she was like they worked together at some point, I guess.
She's spoken well of him a couple of times.
How dare.
Well, and you're not really supposed to have friends, so...
Yeah. It doesn't...
And he doesn't have a lot to think about,
and
probably.
He doesn't, like, Rison, the guy. Leo has a visceral dislike of this guy for reasons that become clear later. But anyway, so Leo and Linda living together, doesn't know if he can trust her, wants to put her under the Kallocain, find out what's going on. And when he does, Linda says, no affair. I do want to kill you. Also, let me tell you about this revelation I had about our children. And then she goes into this long, heartbreaking speech. Like, she had her first kid and felt like, you know, I don't know. Maybe you'll probably tell it better than I will.
Well, I read it day before yesterday, so it's fresh. But she has this really heartbreaking speech about how she has her first child and she's so glad it's a boy because she's really internalized. So instead of a misogynist moment, we'll have an internalized misogynist moment.
Okay, yeah.
She's really internalized how women are just vessels for producing more fellow soldiers. And so she's like, I wish I were a man so I could really be a fellow soldier. And they're just like paying us a compliment, basically being nice to us by being like, of course you're valuable, of course you're equal. And she's like, everyone really knows we're not. We're really just here to produce more boys for the state. And she even says at one point, I hoped at some point in the future they could throw out everything but the ovaries and continue to produce more fellow soldiers. And it's heartbreaking. And she's so glad she has a son because then she's like, oh, I've really done something. And then she has a daughter. And she's watching her son grow up and she feels bad that he leaves the house and she misses him. And she's like, why am I so selfish? And she has this daughter and it sounds like her daughter's like quirky. Mm-hmm. Her daughter's a little bit weird. Mm-hmm. And as she watches her daughter grow up being a little bit of a weirdo, it's like she loves that about her. She loves that she's weird. She wants her to just be a little weirdo. And she just starts like seeing other people as people and individuals and then also seeing herself as a person and an individual. And it's just devastating. And I think the writing is beautiful. There were parts where I just paused and sat and reread some of what she was saying. And I was like, this is a sad book. It's not a fun read, but I think it's a really good book.
I agree. And then then she has that third kid, which like sort of, she talks about it in these stages. Like stage 1, I had this boy. I was fully a member of the state. Stage 2, I had this daughter and I started seeing people for what they were. And stage 3, I have this third daughter. And realize that I am the font of creation, and that every child is an end and a path of its own, and has nothing to do. I got chills just talking about this. But that whole part is just so affecting, and I mean, it must be our girl Karin bleeding through.
Oh yeah,
and talking about this because I thought it was really good.
There's a part where she talks about being a mother.
And she says,
she says anyone can be a mother.
Oh, I have it written down.
Oh, you have it.
Down. It's my feminist favorite.
So we can save it then.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to mention one of the things that I thought were the writing was just really beautiful and I was struck by it. So on my page 168, after Leo puts Linda under the Kallocain, and he's so scared that she's going to murder him as soon as she wakes up from it. And I was kind of like, well,
that's my feminist favorite.
Sort of asked for. I know. Part of my feminist favorite was how he was very afraid of her. And he also kept talking about how she was stronger than him. And in part of her monologue under the Kallocain, she's like, men are naturally stronger than us. And I was like, I don't know. It sounds like you could take Leo. Leo's worried about it. But so they have this talk and she like comes to from the Kallocain and she seems to be fully aware of everything that she said. Because sometimes there's like some question, I think, of if they fully understand everything that they've disclosed or not.
One of the selling points of this drug is that when you come out of it, you remember everything you said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I missed that a little bit. So she's like fully aware of what she said. And he like feels like he should say something, but he's not exactly sure what he should say. So he just goes and lays his head in her lap, which is such a tender thing to do. And he says, he compares this renewed bond or like this bond that they've had, but they haven't been able to acknowledge. And so now it's like, it's out there. And he compares it to being a completely exhausted person finally being allowed to sleep. And the quote is, I was released from one communion, and that's the one with the state. I was released from one communion which was choking me and delivered into a new, simple, obvious one which supported but did not bind.
Oh, some of the lines about marriage are good, are really good. Like she says at one point, he describes his marriage to Linda as a series of defeats where victories had been expected, but then he says, it's appropriate to use the word love when in the midst of hopelessness, two people still cling to each other as if in spite of all, a miracle might take place.
When she says after the Kallocain, she says, You have opened me by force like canned goods. I mean, it's just so evocative. It's so stark.
The way she wrote about when he puts her under the Kallocain and she's, not a willing participant and sort of leaving herself bare, like the phraseology that she uses is very much about rape, and it was very impactful. I mean, I thought it was very good.
Yeah.
I wanted to say some of the things that she writes are funny.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Like when he's talking about alcohol. So Kallocain, makes anybody disclose their personal secrets, and then he's like, "Do you remember when people used to use alcohol? It used to make homes miserable, ruin health, and in the worst cases, led to a trembling of the whole body with hallucinations of white mice, chickens, and such." Which I thought was very funny. And
I would not be surprised if this woman had a very sharp wit.
And I also thought it was kind of funny that every Friday people would apologize over the radio between 8 and 9. And I kind of would like to reinstate that.
Just apologize. I'm
There's
sorry.
definitely a absurdity to it.
And I just would like people who have wronged America to come on the radio and apologize between 8 and 9 every Friday.
And it's voluntary. You don't have to, but you have the opportunity to.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're encouraged to.
That's right.
But no one's going to come to your house and give you a citation and make you do it.
Yes, because not totalitarian.
Exactly.
Famously.
What we want is for people to want to be better.
Help us help you.
And then, the voluntary sacrificial service.
Oh, God.
So laboratory experiments and other experiments, I'm assuming, are performed on people whose job it is to be human lab rats, basically, which, you do have to do human trials. So, now it's just purely voluntary, I suppose.
Yeah.
But how voluntary? I feel like it's not that voluntary.
Now here?
No, I mean, even in this book.
This one, not voluntary.
Yeah.
Because it's your career is to be a test subject. It's not like, well, I have this uncommon illness and there's a new treatment and I would like to sign up for it.
It's like you see on Instagram, do you have depression? Are you in a relationship? Would you like to be in it? Yeah.
Let us not pretend, though, that the United States has not conducted many an involuntary trial on particularly marginalized groups of people.
Yes. 100%.
But yeah, this is it's your full-time job for your life. And then they see the increasing decrepitude of people who have been used as test subjects, and they're like, they get paid in thanks. They're like, "Oh, you're the bravest among us. You're the best of us." And they're like, "Yeah, I am."
I miss my leg.
And then Leo goes to that Disney focus group for the propaganda video.
That was a very weird
to try and get more
people. I did
people.
not understand it one bit. I was like,
it's very weird. He ends up at this. It's when he's in the Capitol, right? He ends up at this random propaganda meeting where they're going to make a new video to get people to volunteer for the voluntary.
But it can't be too. It's like the Goldilocks of being inspirational,
right? It can't have a happy ending. It has to have a sad ending so that people want to fix it. And then
they have to feel stirred by it, not frightened by it, motivated.
And then I was like, this is how Disney makes all their movies, as well as Mr. Spielberg. This is how they make all their movies. They're like, I know exactly what to do to make them to stir them.
The exact right amount.
Exactly.
For me, it just takes a swelling orchestra and I will cry.
I sports movies and swelling orchestras, I'm done. Okay, let's move to feminist favorite.
So even though there's lots of internalized misogyny with the female characters hating themselves and there's this push to only be vessels for procreation, the leader of the 7th Bureau is a Tilda Swinton lady.
Oh, I have her.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Calypso
Labris. And she's just an icy bitch, and I love her.
She's shirts and trousers, man.
Yeah.
She's the chief.
She's definitely a notary.
She's the chief of the propaganda ministry, 7th Bureau.
Why would they let a woman be that high up if they hate women?
Well, I don't know that they overtly hate women in the society. I think that Linda just felt like they were.
Well, I mean, she's probably not wrong.
And just one success story does not know
that's true.
Prejudice make.
Also, what's a success story? There are always marginalized people who carry water for their oppressors. You know, there are women who are yeah, we should be in the hole. We should do what we're told. We should submit to our husbands. And those women achieve a degree of what they would call success or fame or notoriety or whatever. And they sell some stupid book. And so I think this is kind of like that.
See, I think it's the opposite because she's the minister of propaganda. So in Nazi Germany there were no higher up women. So I think it's interesting that she chose to have one be a higher up, but it could just be a fluke.
Yeah, I mean I think it's probably a deliberate choice, but I also think that these types of people will always elevate a select handful of compliant minorities.
It could also be a flaw in the narrative.
Yeah.
So, like, it may not actually go with her internal.
Well, it's kind of like in the early Star Wars movies from the 70s and 80s, there's only white British men in the Empire. And then by the sequel trilogy, there's all kinds of different types of human beings that are on the bad side. So
I would like to read aloud some of the description of Calypso Lavris.
Let's do it.
That we get.
What a fun name.
Calypso. It sounds like it's fun.
A thin-necked woman behind her desk, her skin stretched over lips and cheeks in a permanent ironic smile.
Tilda, man.
Her age was indefinite, her bearing stiff as in an ancient idol. She's half human.
It is Tilda.
She has an enormous pimple on the left side of her nose, just about to reach its full ripeness.
Oh, I like that. Such a detail.
Ripeness.
In her face, one could not read anything personal. Her immobility held in check no secret springs. The crystal clear personification of logic, cleansed of individuality's incidentals.
That reminds me of Tilda in Moonrise Kingdom when she's social services.
Yeah.
And that's the whole name
That's
you
her
get. She's
name.
like, I am social services.
And that pimple description, like such a weird thing to include. And it reminds me of, so I read one summer, I sat on the front porch in my house and I read all of Mice and Men in one sitting. And there's one part where one of the characters reaches up and plucks a right pimple off of his neck. And I don't know why I remember that, but like it's always stuck in my head, and that gave me an instant
Now
flashback.
I'm going to remember it.
And we were talking earlier, this is my other feminist fave, was when Linda says, when she's envisioning this new world, and she says, perhaps a new world may grow from those who are mothers, whether they are men or women, and whether they have given birth to children or not.
I love it.
I love that too.
That is good.
Because her definition here of a mother is a person who can see potential for other people, a person who has empathy. That's a mother for her. That's
I
beautiful.
love it. We did internalize misogyny for our misogynist moment. I don't have any other misogynist moments.
Yeah, just poor Linda.
Poor Linda.
I wrote down, so the very first test subject for Kallocain 135 really hates women. And when he's speaking his truth, he's like, they're deceitful. And he says the ones in the VSS aren't really women anymore, which is one of the worst insults you can hurl at a woman. Like,
Yeah, like what does that even? What that means is you are not my vision of a woman.
exactly. Yeah. It's like, what do you mean I'm not a woman?
Or like
No,
what?
I swear I am though.
I wonder if there's some connection there to like whatever terrible testing and surgeries they may have undergone. And
Oh,
he's like,
yeah.
yeah, it's awful in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any boobs.
Yeah, I didn't get not one boob.
No,
No
you got to
boobs.
keep them in the suit.
When women write a book, you don't get very many boobs.
That's true.
Yeah, because they're just like body parts.
Body parts.
They're like elbows.
Fantastical food. The food we eat in this book include corn porridge, potato soup, pea soup, and there is a reference to bad beef stew.
So there's food, but it is not fantastical.
No. Although I do like a beef stew.
Yeah, none of
soup
that
is
really
good.
sounds bad
Potato
to
soup
me.
is good.
I mean, it sounds like they're at sea, kind of.
I don't think their potato soup comes with like cheese and sour cream and
I love
chives.
potato soup.
It's like a watery potato soup. Like, there's no cream in it.
Soap stuff. So truth serums
serum.
are pretty soapy.
I mean, yeah, basically roofing your wife to give her a truth serum and find out she's cheating on you is like the height of soap
I
stuff.
could see what's the woman who played Marlena?
Deidre Hall.
Thank you. I could see her being truth serumed
Oh, totally.
in a satin nightgown.
I'm sure people have been truth serumed on days in the past 200 years that it's been on television.
Yeah, and there's like a real truth serum that people, it's like sodium hydroxide.
There's a
or
bunch.
sodium
There's several.
pentothal.
Actually.
Yeah.
And actually, there were two that were being talked about a lot when this book was being written.
That makes sense.
One of them was something usually given to pregnant women for, I think, anti-nausea.
Who's the daddy?
They still use it, but the doctor, an obstetrician who prescribed it, noticed that it made them a little talky. So he started like trying to get the army to use it as like a truth serum. But
Oh my
the problem
God.
with truth serums, I looked into truth serums when I was reading this book because I was like, where are we on this? What's the truth serum status? And it's sort of like an alcohol, someone who's drunk.
Yeah.
That you start talking, but it doesn't necessarily mean that what you're saying is reliable.
Yeah.
You
It just
know?
lowers your inhibitions.
Exactly.
Well, it's like what they say about torture too. Like sometimes it works and sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't.
If I accidentally discovered a truth serum, I'd be like, no one needs to know.
Oh, yeah.
That
I
might
don't
be
know.
like the one thing that I would actually keep a secret.
It's like
in my
it's
life.
like being given the one ring. It's like,
Yeah, no one needs that.
can I wield this power?
I'll put it in a drawer. Like, no, I cannot.
I don't ever want the ability to read someone's thoughts.
I might.
I mean, I would if I would make sure that it was never about me. But if I could read someone's thoughts about
Well,
something
that's the
else.
problem. I assume it's always about me, and it usually never is. Probably, like we always assume everybody else is thinking about us, but they usually aren't. I had one other soap stuff. there was this part where she says that police ears and eyes, quote unquote, for technical reasons, could not be installed in elevators. And I got really upset by the end of the book that we did not have a clandestine meeting with someone in an elevator.
And also, why couldn't they be
like
installed?
an obvious place?
I know.
It doesn't make any sense.
For technical reasons, Haley.
Technical reasons.
But she did that on purpose. But like,
I think she just forgot to come back to it.
Oh, maybe.
I think she was setting something up and then we just didn't get the payoff.
technical reasons. It's because they move too fast.
They go up and down.
Or like you can't like wires, like it's moving and the wires will get squished.
In 1939,
the Wi-Fi.
you needed wires to everything.
Yeah,
So.
that's true. Although elevators run by wires, so I don't know.
Cables.
Well, they're cables on a pulley, so I
True.
guess I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know.
There's just no,
Guys, did you like this book?
I did. I think it's a really good book.
I did
and
too.
in talking about it, it kept reminding me of the book that you and Kevin and I read, Amy, When the Sparrow Falls.
Yes.
How that the country is like so out of step with the whole rest of the world, but they don't really know it, or they've been taught that the whole rest of the world is wrong. And then they suddenly start to be like, why don't we have enough to eat?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think if you like that book, you will enjoy this book and vice versa.
I think it is. It sets out what it accomplishes, but I did not enjoy myself reading it, which is one of my hallmarks for liking a book.
It's bleak.
Yeah, it's not like, oh boy,
Yeah.
can't wait to read it again. You know,
Yeah,
but
no,
it's,
like,
I think it's good.
I mean, I had to like be in a specific mind state to pick it up and read it.
Well, I kind of like that I got down a little bit to the wire with finishing it before we recorded. And so I'm glad that happened because I think otherwise I might have had to do that. Like, I don't feel like reading this book
It's better
tonight.
to read it in a big chunk.
But I think that the fact that I had to read it kind of all at once was better because it just sort of puts you in that place and you don't leave and it works in that kind of way. But yeah, it's not like you have a lot of joy reading the book. So,
No.
Yeah. But it's good.
I think she's an excellent writer, and I think that it really works for me writing around in Leo's head like in real time and seeing his interior life versus his exterior behaviors.
Yeah.
I think that's so well executed.
And it's fascinating because people don't always do exactly what they're thinking. Like it's a very human thing to like do things that are contrary to what you want to do. I don't know why we do that, but we do.
Because we contain multitudes.
We contain multitudes, Haley.
And I think she's great at portraying that.
She's very good at human nature. Like humans are going to do this thing no matter what situation they are in. These various things, and including fall in love, including want human connection, including not doing what you intend all the time.
And I mean, I think this book is a testament to why, even though she was very afraid of, the coming storm of, Nazism and totalitarianism in Russia, like she's like, it's not going to work. It will never last forever. So that's hopeful in itself.
She took a trip to Soviet Union, and she was very into this idea before she went to the Soviet Union. And when she went there and came back, she was like, "Nope,
Yeah. This is not going to be good.
Not gonna be good."
Yeah, I mean, like all the leaders of these big, fascist regimes, they're all hypocrites. So.
Yeah, and I think eventually people cotton onto it, and people, man.
So can we agree it's neither Star Wars nor Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, the only thing I said was that maybe it's Star Wars because I think Darth Vader would like to rule a world state.
Yeah, I put that it was Star Wars because this is what it would be like to live under the Galactic Empire.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's kind of where
I
was.
like that.
Yeah. So it's Star Wars.
Man,
I mean, Stormtrooper.
I'm not good at this. I was just like, oh, well, there's nothing to talk
We
about
all
there.
have our strengths. You bring soap stuff to the table.
Yeah.
All right, guys. What do we read next time?
So I was just transcribing the Hyperion episode, which I think we recorded right after Lori read The Terror for the first time, and every 5 minutes she's like, "This reminds me of The Terror." And also, it was written by Dan Simmons.
It's written by the same guy.
It wasn't right after I read it, but I just the scenes that I liked in it really reminded me of The Terror.
No, it's true because it is written by the same guy, Dan Simmons.
I just transcribed. What did I just transcribe?
Starship Troopers.
I just transcribed Starship Troopers, which was the first time we mentioned that we wanted to do an episode about the Terror.
Yeah.
We're finally following
doing the
through.
Terror.
Yes, and we've had so many people be like, they talk about The Terror a lot. Is there an episode? And it's like, no.
And we've got so many people to read it, and I think it's going to be great.
So it has nothing to do with the Hugos.
Nope.
I mean, Dan Simmons is a Hugo Award-winning author.
That's true.
So
That's true.
Yeah,
We could shoehorn it in.
adjacent.
And also, it's our podcast.
But
We can do what we want.
The reason I think of The Terror is that I've read 2.5 of his books now, and they really he's got high points that seem to be templates to me, and they work. I like them, but they feel very familiar.
He does suspense very well.
He's got a winning
Totally.
formula.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to spend time with our men again.
Oh,
It's been a minute since I've read it, so
Yeah.
I'll make some hardtack for us. Maybe some pea soup.
Oh boy, I hope my hardtack is monogrammed this time.
It will be.
I want a monogrammed hardtack.
So I've been watching videos. I won't do this for y'all, and I probably won't do it, but I've been watching a lot of videos on how to make salt pork.
Salt pork.
You can make Amy some salt pork if you make it.
You just put pork and salt, and that's it.
Salted tofu.
Maybe fish.
Fish. You can do
lutefisk. We can have some lutefisk.
Maybe I'll find some saltfish. They definitely have saltfish or like salted codfish at DeKalb Farmers Market.
We can have a rum ration and some anti-scorbutic.
Oh, we should have a rum rat.
I
get some canned food and we can dent them.
This is gonna be an atmosphere.
Please.
This is gonna be an atmosphere. We're all gonna get botulism.
No lead, no botulism.
I wish that we were recording this in the winter, so it would be.
I know.
that's
I
the only
kind of
problem.
wanted to
It's
do
gonna
it
be
in
like
the
not
winter
a summer
too.
book.
It's gonna be a very hot book. But
Should we all get scurvy before we record so that we can talk about it from first-hand experience?
Because apparently, when you get scurvy, it starts to reverse the minute you get some vitamin C.
Your body's collagen's thank you. The teeth just pop.
Yeah, it immediately starts getting better.
I liked when the pirate got scurvy and our flag means death. And he's like, I think I have scurvy.
Oh, I didn't finish that. I started it and haven't finished it.
Amy, it's so good.
So, The Terror next time. Tune in.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye. You can't slurp your cup if we're doing room tone.
Jeez.
Rude.
Oh, fired.